Just to recap on the breaking news we told you earlier, Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's personal attorney, has been subpoenaed by Adam Schiff and other members of the House Intelligence Committee to give them documents relating to that Ukraine phone call. Olivia Gazis joins us now from Washington. She is the CBS News intelligence and national security reporter. Olivia, what more do we know about this subpoena for Giuliani?
Well, we know that it's the second that the committee has issued to date. Of course, last week, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was in receipt of the first. Chairman Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, previewed this yesterday with 60 Minutes, saying that Giuliani was next on the list. Obviously, the committee has a lot of questions as to what kind of instruction, if any, he got from the State Department or the administration more broadly to sort of freelance in the way he apparently has been with regard to Ukraine. And he has himself said that he's got text messages, he's got emails, he's got documentation of all of this. So that's clearly what the committee is going to want to take a look at.
Right, Olivia, he's often talked in the past as if he would welcome a subpoena. He says, I have all kinds of things that I want to show, anyone investigating this. Do you think that he will gladly hand all of this over?
Well, I think what he has said is that he's happy to go along with any investigation so long as it is sanctioned by the White House. It's not clear that this subpoena is not for his testimony yet. This subpoena is specifically for the documents that he may be in possession of that relates to his correspondence with other officials about this matter. What was also announced by the committee today is that there are 3 of his associates that they are also interested in speaking with. 3 names that are as yet foreign to me. I'm sure we'll be learning more about them in the next couple of days, but they're scheduled, or at least their depositions have been noticed for dates in October where the committee is going to hope to speak to these people as well.
All right. Also with us on the phone is CBSN legal contributor Keir Dougall. So, Keir, the fact that this is part of an impeachment inquiry means that Rudy Giuliani really has no recourse except to obey the subpoena, correct?
Well, listen, as to the earlier comment, would Mr. Giuliani be pleased to receive a subpoena? I doubt that. That is something that is undoubtedly he's not going to be excited to receive this subpoena. It has 23 detailed specifications. It lists numerous individuals, including the 3 that Olivia just mentioned. And so all of them are potential witnesses. What's at stake here, and I think why this is so particularly dangerous, is that Congress can potentially impeach the president for contempt of Congress. In fact, when we look at the impeachment articles against Richard Nixon, one of them was for disobeying subpoenas and directing effectively a Stonewall effort. So we've now sort of reached the territory where this is no longer potentially just posturing, but one that could have real consequences if Mr. Giuliani and others, at the direction of the president, were to take an effort across the board to stonewall the oversight functions of the Congress.
Because we know that's what the White House has done in the past, before this became an impeachment inquiry. All of those various other investigations into the president and some of his business dealings, et cetera, there was a lot of stonewalling by the White House. So you're saying that can't be the tact the White House takes in reaction to these subpoenas?
It is a very dangerous tack if they choose to pursue it and continue it, because we have the historical precedent of Richard Nixon facing an article of impeachment. It was voted out of committee for him, wasn't voted on by the House. But similarly, and again, now we're reaching way back to President Johnson, there was also an article of impeachment against President Johnson back in 1868, you can all remember, that included an article of impeachment for contempt of the Congress. The circumstances back then were different. It was over the approach to Reconstruction in the South. But nonetheless, there is historical precedent for a contempt of Congress, which an across-the-board and unreasonable refusal to respond to these subpoenas would undoubtedly be considered to be by the Congress.
So, Keir, of course, Rudy Giuliani is not a government official. Does the fact that he is a private citizen weigh into this at all?
Well, sure. On the one hand, we've heard Mr. Giuliani saying that he was only taking steps to defend his client. That suggests that he was acting in the role of an attorney and that there's an attorney-client relationship at stake. On the other hand, I think we've seen the press reports where he's held up his phone and said, no, I was acting for the State Department, and everything that I did was for the State Department. Those are completely sort of different scenarios, and I think sort of may create different obligations on the part of Mr. Giuliani.
What are the implications for both of those, Keir? Let's say, he is able to prove that he was acting with some direction or guidance from the State Department versus being completely a rogue agent working for the president.
So on the one hand, if he is in fact working for the State Department, then the records that he's got, the communications that he's got, those would all become government records. And to the extent that there's an attempt to shield them, either through across the board, an across the board stonewalling or an improper assertion of executive privilege, you could end up in the consequence where we spoke earlier, where President Trump potentially, if he pushes this theory to extreme, could potentially face an article of impeachment for contempt. Mm-hmm. Let's remember that an executive privilege claim cannot survive where the effort is to conceal wrongdoing or to cover up a fraud.
Right.
So underlying all of this is, if there is wrongdoing, that claim should not be successful. In the circumstance where Mr. Giuliani really is acting as an attorney for the president in his efforts relating to Ukraine, well, he could make a claim for attorney-client privilege, assuming that the communications that are the subject of this have remained confidential. Mm-hmm. But once again, the attorney-client privilege is similarly subject to claims of wrongdoing and fraud. You cannot use the attorney-client relationship to conceal wrongdoing and fraud. So the analysis is slightly different. The privilege claim might effectively be a little bit stronger if he's acting as the president's attorney. But again, the underlying concern is there wrongdoing at the bottom of this?
And it's also my understanding there is some question as to, who is paying Rudy Giuliani. Is the president paying him personally to be his personal attorney? Is he working pro bono? It's sort of unclear as to who is his employer, correct?
It is. Frankly, that's less of a concern. Attorneys can work without being compensated, as you say, pro bono, and the attorney-client privilege doesn't depend in this circumstance on whether or not there's a formal and ongoing payment relationship. I think that's sort of not the core issue here.
Okay. All right. So I want to play again what Rudy Giuliani told CNN on the 19th of September. Let's listen.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did. If the president of the United States said to the president of Ukraine, investigate the corruption in your country that has a bearing on our 2016 election, isn't that what he's supposed to do?
So Giuliani has been vocal in public interviews, as we just saw there. Olivia, what exactly are these committees interested in learning from him, and what are the documents they're seeking?
Sure. Well, I'm sure that they would vehemently dispute the way that Rudy Giuliani laid out just there, and saying that soliciting election interference from a foreign power is exactly the thing that you are not supposed to do as sitting president of a country. So they're going to want to probe Giuliani on this. This first step is for them to take a look at the documents that he has to see how far this network extends. I'm seeing some reporting come in just now that Secretary Pompeo may have also participated in the call on July 25th, which would raise some serious implications for him. The committee has, of course, subpoenaed the secretary. They did that last week. We don't know yet whether the secretary has handed over the documents that the House Intelligence Committee has demanded from him, but we do know that some other State Department officials are expected, we also don't know that they have committed to, but are expected to testify before the committee in the coming weeks.
That would be significant. So you are hearing that the Secretary of State was also on the phone partially during that phone call?
Candidly, I just saw a news alert on my phone. It looks like the Wall Street Journal reporting via one official, yes, that Secretary Pompeo took part in the call on July 25th. CBS News has not confirmed that, as far as I'm aware, just yet. So we are looking into that report. But yes, the scrutiny as to who was on the call, who was in the room, who was briefed on the call, who took notes on the call, who reviewed the notes from the call, are all a sort of circle that the committees, both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees now, are going to want to scrutinize as they sort of unfurl this investigation.
An ever-widening circle. All right, Olivia Gazis and Keir Dougall, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.